Thank you for taking the time to learn about this important topic, pediatric vehicular heat stroke, the tragic consequence of when children succumbed to the heat inside a hot vehicle. This is part one of a three-part series that will examine the background, causes, as well as strategies to mitigate these sorts of occurrences of hot car child deaths. In this segment, we will give an overview of the history of PVH, as well as look at how hot cars can get. These are some of the tragedies from last year. These are just 3 of the 29 hot car deaths that occurred. But there's also some good news. People are becoming more aware of children being left in hot cars, and we see more and more children rescued each year. Last year, there's a total of 29 hot car deaths. This is compared to the average of 37 that was recorded the period of 1998 to 2023. Hot car deaths have increased in the last 2 decades. In the late 1980s, we started putting airbags in vehicles. In the early 1990s, we saw as children were in the front passenger seat and airbags deployed, children were being injured and sometimes killed. So there was an effort to move children into the back seat, as well as at the same time, car seat manufacturers began making rear-facing seats, which were found to be safer for smaller infants and children. While this saved children's lives from airbags, it also had them in the back and many times out of sight and out of mind, and we saw the number of hot car deaths rise to about its current level, approximately 37 per year, that it has extended through 2019, and then due to the pandemic and people changing their driving patterns and working more from home, we have seen a decrease in the number of hot car deaths. Since 1998, there have been almost 1,000 hot car child deaths across the country. You notice that 969 number here has a plus after it. That's because we keep finding out about instances that don't get recorded into our database over the years. That could be as many as 5 or 10% higher. You'll also notice that across the southern tier of states is where we have the most hot car deaths, but only 3 states, Vermont, New Hampshire, and Alaska, have had 0 over this same time period. So what is heat stroke? Heat stroke is a subset of hyperthermia, which is any time you have an elevated body temperature. That could be due to exertion. It could also be due to being ill and having a fever. When those temperatures reach 104 degrees, that's a clinical definition for heat stroke. And that's when our body's cooling systems begin being overwhelmed and begin shutting down. We'll stop perspiring, and often we'll have flush, dry skin. One of the first things that first responders look for when they suspect a heat stroke case is the person will be flushed, but their skin will be dry. Children's bodies are even less capable of cooling themselves than an adult. Their body temperatures can rise 3 to 5 times faster than an adult's in a similar heating situation. This is also exacerbated by children who are in car seats where their back, buttocks, and thighs are in contact with the car seat and can't cool themselves by evaporation. When the body temperature reaches 107 degrees, that's when cells become damaged, organs can shut down in fairly rapid order in a cascade effect, and death can occur and/or permanent disability. So how hot do cars get? And what's a meteorologist doing talking about heat stroke? I was first contacted in 2001 by a reporter in the San Francisco Bay Area after the death of a 5-month-old child who had been left in a hot car. And he asked me, how hot could it have gotten in that car, Jan? I couldn't find any comprehensive studies, so that summer I started keeping track of temperatures in my own vehicle. Was really surprised at, number one, how hot cars got, and 2, how rapidly they reached some of those temperatures. The following year, I did a controlled study, looked at 16 different days with outside air temperatures between 72 and 96 degrees, and looked at the temperature rises over 60 minutes. In 2 of the days, I cracked the windows to simulate what someone might do to, as they thought they might be able to cool down the vehicle. Cars act the same as a greenhouse. The sun's shortwave energy is transparent pretty much to the air as well as glass, but that shortwave energy heats up objects inside the greenhouse. Those in turn give off long-wave radiation, which is very efficient at heating the air, and that air is trapped inside the greenhouse. Same thing happens inside a car. The shortwave energy heats up objects inside the vehicle. We've all felt how hot a dashboard or a steering wheel can get. Those in turn give off that long-wave radiation trapped inside the car, and the heat continues to rise. Here are the 16 study days that I did in 2002. You'll notice that the curves are all fairly similar, fairly rapid rise in the first 10 to 20 minutes, and then flattening out over the period of time out to 1 hour. If we average those rises, we'll see in the first 10 minutes the average rise is 19 degrees. After half an hour, 34 degrees, and in an hour's time, it's 43 degrees above whatever the starting outside air temperature was. Here's an example on a fairly typical, and for many parts of the country, a relatively mild summer day, starting at 80 degrees. 20 minutes, we're at 109. Half an hour at 114. And then after an hour's time, we're at 123, a temperature which would very likely not be survivable by a small infant or child. Here's that same data in a tabular format, as well as the data off in the blue, which is my extrapolated data and from doing some other testing over the years. Some of that involved starting with temperatures in the 60s in the morning hours around 8 o'clock, and seeing what the temperature rises would be out by the time we got to noon. Looking at temperatures in excess of 130 degrees and a difference between the outside air temperature and inside the vehicle of a plus 54 degrees. Nearly half of the temperature rises in the first 10 minutes, 80% in the first half hour, and then they plateau in the 45 to 50 degrees range. As I said, cracking windows has minimal effect. It also doesn't have to be a hot day for a car to reach deadly temperatures. And dark cars are not necessarily worse than white cars or lighter cars. What happens is dark cars more often have darker interiors and lighter cars have lighter interiors. It's the color of the fabric and the materials that determines how hot they get and how much long-wave radiation that is then goes into heating inside the vehicle. And you can test this yourself by feeling up around the dome light headliner of your vehicle on a sunny day. That area is not particularly hot. The heat that's heating up the car is not coming through the sheet metal on the headliner. It's coming through the windows as shortwave energy. So this research was originally published in 2005 with my co-authors Dr. McLaren and Dr. Quinn of Stanford University, and it is kept up to date at noheatstroke.org. You can find out more about the vehicle heating and other related topics at noheatstroke.org. The National Safety Council also has an excellent online tutorial course that only takes about 10 minutes to complete. And feel free to contact me at any time if you need additional information. I'll hope you will also look at the following two segments.